If you've been waiting for that moment where buyers finally have the upper hand, well, this might be it. This Atlanta fall market has been quietly offering up some of the best deals I have seen all year. I'm going to bring you a fall market update of what's been happening in the Atlanta real estate market. I'm going to show you some charts, give you a few examples of what I've seen personally, so stay tuned. Hey everyone, my name is Molly and welcome back to my channel where I talk all things living here in the Atlanta area. And today I want to just give you a brief overview of what's been happening in that Atlanta real estate market. Is it a good time to be buying? Is it a good time to be selling? Honestly, it really kind of depends. But if you've been waiting for that perfect moment to buy, well, this might be the best time, especially as we get into the holidays. Sellers are kind of more desperate to sell and you can get some really good deals out there. Condos and townhomes especially, we are seeing more flexibility in pricing and in seller incentives for those products. Now, it can still depend though, if you are looking at a single family home, where you are looking. I'll get into that here and more in a little bit, but let's jump into the charts just to start talking about what has been happening here in the Atlanta real estate market. And if you watched any of my prior videos on the Atlanta real estate market, it's going to sound pretty similar. I mean, we are kind of in this cycle now where we are getting to the fall, things start to slow down. So we are in that cyclical pattern, but I will say it just feels very, very slow out there. So if you are a buyer looking for something, there is still time before year end that you could grab a great deal. All right, so first I'm going to talk about single family homes in that particular market. And in my past videos, I have always kind of given you the numbers for the greater Atlanta area, meaning Atlanta and all of the metro suburbs. But in this video, I decided I'm going to branch it down into just focusing on areas inside the perimeter ITP or inside the 285 loop. Now, I will say the story that I'm giving for ITP areas is going to be very, very similar for all of the metro area. Their numbers may differ just slightly, but it's going to be the same story overall. I just want to focus on the ITP area because that is where I live, work, and play. So let's get into it. Okay, first let's talk about where inventory levels are. Now, we talk about inventory here in the real estate world just to kind of measure, you know, is this a seller's market or a buyer's market? Now, remember, for it to be a seller's market, we would need less than 6 months of inventory. If it was a buyer's market, that would mean we would need 6 months or more of inventory. If we're right at around 6 months, that is technically what we call a balanced market. Now, what does 6 months of inventory even really mean? It just means that if no new homes were to hit the market, for all the existing homes that are out there, it would take about 6 months to sell them all. So here we go. So let's look at single family homes here, ITP, and you're gonna see that the months of supply here, it has basically grown year over year since 2022 up to where we are currently. The last data I have is for October, and we are currently at 5.1 months. This is about an 8.5% year over year increase. And so, yes, we are seeing more and more inventory hit that market. But I will say it is really micro specific because in certain neighborhoods, there's not a lot of inventory. And I also find that in certain price brackets, that's where you will see more or less inventory. So for example, if we are looking at homes that are under 500,000, we are at 6.2 months on average for inventory. Now, homes under 500,000 ITP, those are going to probably be in more transitional areas. They're going to be smaller homes. They're not going to be that big 4-bedroom home with a 2-car garage. It's going to be a 3-2 and smaller square footage. So we have an abundance of these smaller homes that are probably a little bit less desirable for the typical family. Now, homes in that 500 to 800,000, we're at 4.6 months. So this is still a little bit more of a seller's market, but I will say it really just kind of depends on the home. You know, if it is picture perfect, magazine worthy, that will probably still warrant multiple offers. But if it needs work, there's going to be less people bidding on that home and it could take a lot longer to sell. in that $800 to $1.2 million range. Believe it or not, this is still a very good seller's market in this price range. Typically, you know, ITP in this price range, this is kind of a sweet spot where you're going to find some of those more desirable homes that has the 4-bedroom or 5-bedroom, probably has a garage. So those homes are definitely still in high demand and people are still making multiple offers on them. And finally, when we hit over that $1.2 million mark, our supply level comes back up a little bit, but it's still a seller's market overall. So that is just, you know, I found that very interesting to break that down by price points because, like I said, depending on where you are here in the Atlanta area and what price point you're looking at can really tell a different story. So how long is it taking to get a home sold? Especially sellers right now, they're very anxious and wanting to know, like, how long is it going to take to get my home sold? For a single family home right now, as of October, it's taking about 36 days. Now that is the median cumulative days on market. If I were to look at the average days on market, that is at 69 days. So however you want to slice and dice that data, it really is up to you. But I'm looking at the median and that is 36 days. And that is about a 24% increase year over year. Now, I know that sounds like a long time, and I have to remind sellers, if you look back to past years, we're really kind of in a more normal market. It just feels really slow because we were used to that COVID year time span when things were wild. So when you look at years past, I mean, when you take out 2020 through 2022, look at this line. I mean, we are kind of in line with, you know, 2014 to 2019, which were very normal, typical real estate years. So while it does seem kind of long, we're actually in a very balanced market right now. Okay, so everyone's favorite question. So are prices dropping like a rock now? Because I will say I have seen a lot of price reductions here in the Atlanta market. And this is a problem where, you know, sellers are either being aspirational or they're basing their prices off of really old data. You really can't be looking at 6-month-old data. You really need to be only looking at 1 to 2 months of data when you are pricing out your home these days, because what sold a year ago is going to be a different price than what sold as of today. So are prices dropping? Well, no, they're really kind of holding on steady. Now, I would say it's relatively flat. Like we had a year over year change of just about 1.2% increase. So when you're looking at 2025, you know, it's kind of smoothed out and we're really just kind of staying steady with, you know, the last couple of years. So no, overall in the big, you know, picture here in the Atlanta ITP area, prices are just kind of remaining steady, calm, nothing crazy. Now, how is sales activity overall? Now I'm going to put up this chart and I showed it in my previous market updates. Same story. Our overall sales here in the Atlanta area are just way down from prior years. You can see just basically from 2023 into 2025, we have just been lower sales volume. We have been kind of in this slump. So as you can imagine, days on market is taking a little longer. There's just more inventory. So all these factors combine and there's just less buyers kind of shopping out there right now. The number of homes being sold year over year has just been pretty slow. I mean, if you look back to prior years, you can just see that we are way below even, you know, our normal market year. So we're kind of in this market crash right now, if you will. It's just a different kind of crash. It's not because of bad mortgage deals. It is just that I think there's a lot of people on the sidelines waiting for interest rates or waiting about the economy. I know there's just so many unknowns about what's going to be happening with the economy. So we've just got a lot of people on the sidelines, and this chart really does reflect of how many people are sitting this thing out for right now. In fact, there is some data in our MLS system. We'll show you how many showings per listing on average a home is getting per month. In October, we're getting on average 3 showings per house, which is a very low showing amount compared to, you know, the wild years of 2021, 2022, where you would get 8 to 10 showings per listing, we're at a very low amount. But when you compare it to, back to our normal years back in 2017 to 2019, you're going to see we're kind of in line with that. So while again, it does feel slow, we're really kind of in this normal market that we've had in the past. But remember, markets are very micro specific. So I want to give you a couple of examples of some specific neighborhoods just to show you how the story can change. And I picked Grant Park this time. Last time I gave you an update, I think I chose Morningside, but for Grant Park, this neighborhood can still be very, very hot. Now, if you're looking in that $800,000 to $1 million range, this will get you a really nice 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath home with a small yard, may or may not have a garage, but this will get you a pretty decent home in the Grant Park area. Those are still in high demand in Grant Park, and the average days on market is 4 days. They have 2 months of supply, so this is definitely much more of a seller's market. And you can see that closed to list price 101%. So definitely people are paying over the list price to get the home. On the contrary, let's look at Southwest Atlanta again. Again, this is going to be an area where it's very investor heavy. These are smaller homes, renovated homes. There's some bad flip homes in this area, and there is just so much inventory here and it's not moving. So here, days on market on average 61 days. Actually, I think that might be the median. If I looked at the average, it's actually even a little bit higher, but your months of supply is 8.3 months. So definitely a buyer's market over here. And that is definitely what we always tend to see whenever there is a shift in the market, a slowdown. Some of these areas where it's very investor heavy, they tend to get hit first. But there's obviously some good deals going on where the close to list price ratio is around 95%. So definitely some deals can happen over in this area. Okay, so now let's switch gears and let's talk about the townhome market. Normally, I only bring you the condo market, but I want to talk about the townhome market because I've got some townhome listings and I can tell you from my personal accounts of what's been going on there. And let me just tell you, it is slow. Let's look at the supply of townhomes and just look how the supply of townhomes has grown from 2022 up to current day here in October of 2025. We're currently at 5.7 months, so technically a little bit of a seller's market, but I would say it really feels like a buyer's market. We have just had this huge increase in townhomes. A lot of resale townhomes, but also there has been a lot of new construction townhomes where you get these giant communities with 100 to 200 townhomes. And we are just oversaturated in the townhome market. So as a result, the days on market for a townhome, look at the average cumulative days on market, it's 71 days. Now I've got several townhome listings here this fall, and I will say the activity level and people coming to look at them has been very, very low. I've had conversations with other listing agents who have similar townhome properties listed, and they also said their activity level is just pretty dead. So here's my advice. If you are a buyer that is interested in a townhome right now, a lot of sellers will negotiate. So even if you're seeing a townhome that's priced maybe a little bit out of your budget, give a stab at it and make an offer, because there is a good chance right now, especially at the end of the year, this seller might make a deal and just want to be done with it. So the townhome market is definitely one where buyers are really winning right now. In fact, we are not used to this longer days on market in the townhome world. I mean, if you look back, except for a small glitch, right when COVID started, the last time we've had this many days on market was back in 2013, 2014. So like I said, if you are looking for a townhome, you want a deal, townhomes, you can definitely get one. And in fact, the average sales price for townhomes, I use the rolling 12-month average, so it would kind of smooth out the line. Otherwise, if I give you month to month, it looks very choppy. But you're going to see that the average price of townhomes has softened a little. It has went down from January of 2025 down to October. We've went down about 2.4% in overall average sales price. So like I said, if you're looking for a deal, townhomes is where it's at. Finally, let's talk about what's happening in the condo market. Now, I feel like I'm a broken record bringing up the condo market because nothing's really changed except it is just getting slower and tougher out there. I know a lot of sellers are frustrated. Maybe they're taking down their listing agent saying, why aren't you bringing in more traffic? But you guys, the traffic just isn't there. And there's a lot more inventory just comparing last October to this October. Look at this chart right here. In 2024, we were at 5.6 months of supply, and it has just peaked up in October of 2025 up to 8.1 months. So a lot more inventory out there, less buyers. The time on market is going to be longer. In fact, look at the cumulative days on market. We're looking at 109 days. And side note, I am filtering out this data by condos under $1 million. I didn't want to include the luxury condo market because that's kind of a whole different bracket. So, just looking at condos under $1 million, which there are a lot of them here in the Atlanta area, there is just a lot of supply and it's taking a long time to get those condos sold. What's happening with that sales price? Well, it is slightly decreasing. It's not tanking like I think a lot of people imagine, but there's definitely motivated sellers out there. If we look at where we were in January of 2025 to now here in the fall, it has decreased just under 2%. So there is definitely some softening in that condo market overall. Now, a lot of people will ask me, Molly, why is the condo market so slow? Well, Atlanta's a transient city, so there's a lot of people coming and going. They buy a condo, they either move out of town or they move into a single family home, that kind of thing. So there's always just a lot of supply out there, but also there's a combination of higher interest rates and these high HOA fees. It's really making your mortgage payment a lot higher, making it less affordable for a lot of buyers. Also, something I didn't think about until I just had a conversation with a fellow agent this week. And he brought up a good point. Here in Atlanta now, there are so many apartment complexes, new ones, that have really nice amenities, a nice pool, a really nice gym. You've got the on-site maintenance. And, for $2,500, $3,000, a mortgage payment would be just as much, and you're not going to get as nice of amenities or a gym or that maintenance person to come and fix your toilet or whatever's not working in your unit. So I think there's a lot of people that are just kind of happy just to be in that nice apartment complex that has all the bright and shiny things and new things, because a lot of the condos here in Atlanta are not new. They are, early 2000 builds, or older. So I think there's also a little bit of a combination of that. I think people are just kind of content renting in a nice building. So I think all those things together is making this condo market very, very slow. Overall, the Atlanta real estate market has been a little bit harder this year, especially for sellers. I mean, there was a report that came out saying in August, Atlanta was one of the highest cities to have contract cancellations in the country. And that was just like crazy to me. I think 15% was the national average, and Atlanta was at 24%. So that's another thing, is that buyers are being very, very picky right now, and they will cancel a contract at the drop of a pen if there's one little thing that's wrong in the inspection report. So it's been very interesting to watch and see what's been happening. And then meanwhile, I'm in Virginia Highland, and I just saw a $2 million home on a very popular street get 5 offers. And I think it at least went 130K over. And I don't know what the final sales price is, but so, there's all these different stories happening here in the Atlanta area. It really just kind of, again, depends on where you are looking. So with that, that is pretty much my conclusion of what's been going on here in the Atlanta real estate market. As I said before, right now in November, December, and early January, if you are a buyer in this market, this is a great time to be getting some deals. Sellers are getting a little bit desperate. They're willing to negotiate. And if that interest rate is really, holding you back, there are some creative ways to get that interest rate down. You could potentially have the seller buy that rate down. So there's some options. Reach out to me. I could share those with you and get you connected with a lender that could tell you more about it and run some numbers on it. But so it's a great buyer's market for condos and townhomes, single family homes. It really just kind of depends on where you are you're looking to get a deal or not. So there you have it, you guys. Thanks for joining me. As always, if you see me out in the wild, make sure you say hello. I would love to say thank you for watching. But until next time, you guys, I'll see you around the neighborhood.